Page 36, Drink to Me Only with Thine Eyes. Very famous focal piece, a song. It's a nice piano arrangement though. On page 34, they give you some more finger drills to play. Have fun with those if you want. Again, you can use the Hannon book or the Cherny book that I recommended in the previous video. That for wiggling the fingers, that's fine. I don't use them. I play them for fun, but other than that, I don't use them. I use the scales. On page 35, they're introducing you to the damper pedal. Well, things just got more interesting. So now, in addition to the hands going over, you got to be able to work a foot. And we need to listen carefully because the pedal changes the sound. We need to be aware of that change. I'm very picky. So these books, when they recommend the pedaling, they generally keep it simple for you because you got enough to think about already. But whenever you get used to the simple pedaling like that, you also get used to the sound that it produces. And the sound it produces is usually pretty bad. I don't want you to get used to the pretty bad sound, so I usually complicate the pedaling because you've got to be critical on how you're using the pedal. Now they give some pictures up above of that. Okay, that's fine. I enjoy looking at the pictures. In the middle of the page, on page 35, they give the indication for the pedal. Please understand that different publishers use different indications. This is the one that's used the most, and I like it the most. It seems to be the clearest of all the other different pedaling indications there was. This isn't the first kind of pedal indication that came out back in the 1800s. There were others, and they weren't nearly as clear as to when to push the pedal down or when to lift it up. However, this indication, even though it's clearest, is still not accurate on when to push the pedal down and when to lift it up. I haven't seen hardly any music that is. Well, that's where a teacher comes in. They help you on adjusting that indication and when do you push the pedal down and when do you lift it up. Because it isn't always push the pedal down with a note and lift it up with a note. No. No. At the bottom of page 33, they give you and they're showing down after you play the note. That's sort of correct, but I want to adjust that too. So let's talk about this drinking thing. And the pedaling I do last. On my sequence of learning a new piece of music, I do that. Well, I say last. Actually, the interpretation is last. The pedaling is the last thing I add before interpretation. I always learn a piece first without pedals, so you can hear exactly what the fingers are doing, because it's too easy to get into the habit of letting the pedal cover things up. And you get lazy with the fingers because the pedal will do it. Please. Always learn a piece without pedal first, and then you add the pedal. You can hear really the effect the pedal is having to the sound. You have to listen very carefully here. So let's go through my little process of learning a new piece of music. This is 2 pages long. It's a little longer, huh? Treble and bass clef. There's no sharps or flats in the key signature. The key signature comes after the clef sign and before the time signature. If you're wondering the order in the music of when these things come, I remember it by thinking alphabetically. The clef sign starts with a C, that comes first. The key signature starts with a K, and that comes next. And then the time signatures start with a T, and that comes last. So it's in alphabetical order. And when you don't see any sharps or flats, that's C major. So that's where you go to the C major scale. 1 octave up and down, you're doing that, I hope. And then the 3/4 time signature. I would take one hand at a time, so make sure we got the fingering and all. We're moving around a little bit. Starting here. And until we move, we don't need any of these other finger numbers. So it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Okay. Okay. Now, bottom of the page. Page 36. Last 2 measures, you have the C that's tied. You hold it down for 5 counts. Then they want 3rd finger here. Just reach up, 3rd finger, and then clasp. We just changed hand positions, again, by crawling around. Yeah, so it's here. Then going on. See, I'm playing the C each time. Little finger comes up. I didn't move the hand, just a little finger up. You see, it's quite common in piano for the outside fingers to cover 2 notes. So the thumb might need to cover 2 notes, and the little finger might need to cover 2 notes. You don't move the hand, you're just moving the finger. That happens, and this is what this is. Because I'm still using 3rd finger on the G. And then at the end of the line, you don't need that 3, you're already there. And then the second line, the last 3 measures, I like this fingering. It's 3, 2, 1, 2. See the 2 E's? We change hand positions on the repeated notes. I like that. We do this a lot in piano. So you play the first E with thumb and then here. So we just changed hand positions. Yeah, I recommend that. That's good. And then the 3rd line, during the rest, you can come back down here. Like you were at the beginning. Left hand, well, you've seen a G, you're here. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. See, the kicker here is when you have more than 1 note at a time being played, can you get that notes down at the same time? Again, I'm letting weight push the notes down. I'm just kind of dropping gently. It's not a blah, it's a gentle drop. I'm just lowering which fingers I want the weight to be on. Here and then here. But they need to go down at the same time. Well, in the second line, going from the 2nd measure to the 3rd measure, you're here. Can you get those down at the same time? I'm transferring weight from this finger to both of these fingers. Just a slight turn here, very slight. I exaggerated so you can see it better, but I'm just transferring weight here. And if you tend to get one note down before the other, then focus on the note that's late and try and get it, concentrate on and get it down in time. So here, and then let the other finger go along until you can get them down at the same time. So let's go over to page 37, 2nd line. Thumb comes up here. Just read the thumb up. I already talked about the outside fingers covering multiple notes. Then reach up here. Well, we got a problem. Because in the next measure, I need to go to here. I'd rather not use the same fingers. So I got to adjust the fingering a little bit. They don't give us any fingering. Isn't that nice of them? Last note of the 2nd measure. The 2nd line on page 37. You're reach up here and just 3rd finger is the 3-1. And then 2nd finger's ready for the G. And just move the thumb up. Here. Here. And then during the rest you come back down where you were. Once you kind of understand what each hand is doing, now let's see if we can put the hands together and see what happens. You're starting here, and here, and here. Get the idea? So you go through and put the hands together, and then go back through the tricky spots and get rid of the hesitation. So it's a steady beat. Go as slow as you need to, doesn't matter, but it's got to be a steady beat. And then once we do that, we think about the articulation, because at first I try and connect everything. Now we can lift up for in the right hand. They want you to hear. Well, if you read the words, there's no break in that. That's just one. So I don't know why they're slurring this way. In my mind, I would connect that first line all the way to the comma, to eyes, at the last measure. So connect it. Now you can lift up if you want. And if you don't feel like you want to lift up there, you don't have to lift up at the end of the line. You could connect the first 2 lines together as one big phrase. If you want, it's up to you. Different people will interpret it differently. How do you want to do it? If you want to lift up at the last measure of the first line, you're doing that. Don't mess up the rhythm any. You're just cutting the E a little bit short. I don't care for that. I think I'm going to connect it all. And then going on third line is going to be the same way. I'm going to connect the next two lines together until I get to the last measure at the bottom, and then go up. That is a new phrase there. And this is all. That's all together. So put in the phrasing. In the left hand, you connect it as best you can, even though you can't connect any of it. You try and connect it. You pretend it's connected. And that's really the only articulation they're giving, and that's fine. Then the dynamics, they don't give any dynamics. Isn't this pleasant? Well, you can tell by the mood of the piece and the words in it how loud this is not a party piece. This is a gentle piece. So it's going to be somewhere in the middle. It could be in the mezzo piano to mezzo forte range in that area for the melody. Somewhere medium soft, medium loud. The left hand has to be soft. Keep the left hand light and the right hand a little heavier, or a little less light, I'm not sure. That's fine. Throughout the whole piece is generally in that. Now, once we get into the interpretation, you might feel it getting a little louder and softer in places, and that's okay. Now, once I have that, I think about the speed. Moderato, cantabile. Moderato's a middle, and cantabile is like a singing, pleasant singing style. Don't rush these. But I have to decide on the speed. It's a gentle speed. You can probably find recordings of this, but if you're going to listen to recordings, I would listen to as many as you can get, or several at least, because they'll play it, or they'll sing it, they'll take it at different speeds. They'll do it differently, and you need to hear the differences. Now, once I have all that, then I'll add the pedal. Okay, let's talk this pedal thing. They have the pedal markings, but again, when the pedal goes down and when it lifts up, the markings are not accurate. That's where the teacher comes in. The technique I'm going to teach you first is the one that's used most of the time. Generally speaking, we would like to start the sound first before we release the dampers, because when we release the dampers, it releases the overtones. For instance, if I play a note, any note, doesn't matter, you can hear what it sounds like. But if I play it and release the overtones, you see it sounds different. It's a little difference, but it's an important difference. So what I want to do is I want to start the sound first and then release it. It's like letting the sound grow out. So I push the pedal down immediately after I play the note. It's not done rhythmically. It's just immediately after. Note first, then the pedal. See, so I start it, and then an instant later, the overtones come. And that's done most of the time. So at the beginning of this, I'm going to push the notes down first and then the pedal. Here. Now, they're showing up pedal and then down pedal at the next measure. I want to adjust that a little bit. There's a different marking here they'll show eventually, and I wish they would show it now. It's called the change pedal. A change pedal is when you let the pedal up and put it right back down, just up and down. It's not a quick jerky motion or nothing, it's just up and down. You got time. That changing the pedal is all it is. That's what I want to do between the first two measures. I want to change pedal. I want sound all the way through. But I'm going to change the pedal, the up and down, right after I play the half note in the second measure. It overlaps just a hair. Now, the overlapping has been done for a long time, and most people, I highly recommend it. But it's got to be done immediately after you play the note. Don't wait, or otherwise they can hear this blah. So if I overlap it, but I'm late, it sounds like this. You see that just a little bit in the second measure where it was, well, that's what we don't want. So you right after you play it, you lift it up and put it right back down. Because if it's an instant, we don't pick it up. The ear doesn't pick it up. And And that's legato pedaling, or it's called a lot of different things. Syncopated pedaling, live pedaling. Legato pedaling is really kind of a different thing, but you could call it that. The idea is we always have sound. And you can't connect repeated notes on a piano. I mean, there's a way, but let's not go there. So we use the pedal for that, because I can connect those. And that's really what we're doing here in the first two measures. We have repeated notes, so we want to connect them, therefore we're going to use the pedal. You see, if you're going to use pedal, understand why you're using it, or don't use it. Just don't use it because the music said to. Try and understand what is going on here. We're just connecting the notes. Because we're not pedaling this. If we pedal this, I mean, we'd smear all that. Ugh. So we don't pedal that. And then in the second line, they have this. I disagree. I would not pedal that measure. I see no reason to pedal that measure, because it changes the sound too much. In the last two measures of the first line, I don't want to add all these overtones all of a sudden. So I recommend don't pedal the first measure of the second line. And any other place in here that is like that, don't pedal that. Just leave the pedal out. We don't need it. Now at the end of the second line here, you can pedal that, because one of the reasons we use pedal is to help us color and sound color longer held notes. And at the end of the second line, that's held for what, 5 counts? If you just play it without pedal, it just sits there and dies away. But if I can use the pedal, it has the overtones. It gives it a little bit of color, a little more interest here. And that's what we're doing here. And then you'd lift the pedal up with the hands on beat 3. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Everything comes up together, like so. Same thing at the bottom. The last two measures, you're coloring that long held notes, then come up, and then go ahead and pedal. And we're pedaling that because it's repeated. We want to connect it. So we're pedaling. This is the last note on page 36. Going on, we're connecting this. It's repeated notes. And on the second line on page 37, you don't need to pedal that. We're fine. We don't need it. Now, the last two measures there on the second line here, we need the pedal here because we need help connecting the notes. You see, sometimes pedal is used to help us connect notes that we can't connect with the fingers. This also helps us to color these longer notes here. So push the note down first in the pedal, and then change the pedal right after you play the notes. And then lift the pedal up in the hands on beat 3 together. So again, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, rest. And then you go on. Yeah, and then the same thing at the bottom, last two measures, you pedal that to give it overtones, a little more interest. And that's basically the pedaling on here. There's different techniques for pedaling. And technique, I'm not talking about physical technique with your foot. Basically, your foot, the heel's on the ground, and you're working the ankle back and forth. All right, that's it. But technique on when to pedal and why to pedal and how to pedal and all this kind of stuff, we'll get into that more. As far as the interpretation goes, remember the natural accent. 1, 2, 3, 1. Feel that. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Exaggerate it at first if you have to, but make sure you can feel it. Otherwise, you just get into the music. If you feel like getting a little louder somewhere, then go a little louder. Just keep the left hand in the background. Now, just to make sure you're clear on this pedaling, on the first 3 measures at the top, I'm going to push the notes, then the pedal. I'm going to change the pedal after I play the notes. And I'm going to lift the pedal after I play the notes in the 3rd measure. So it's all connected. And then I lift it up. That ensures there's always sound coming. Let's play this together very slowly and check the notes and the rhythms. I'm going to pedal it as I suggested. I'm not going to do any dynamics, louds and softs. I'm going to play both hands about the same. I need you to hear all the notes. We're not performing it here. We're just checking notes and rhythms. So I'll give us 3 counts. 1, ready, go. 2, 1, 2, 3, tie, 2, rest. 1, 2, 3, tie, 2. 3, 2, rest. 1, 2, 3, tie, 2, rest.